Welcome to Minot Matters here on the Dakotan, brought to you by Shock, Safe, and Lock. Today I'm pretty excited to have an interview with the Superintendent of the Minot Public School District, Dr. Mark Vollmer. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So there was some pretty big news that happened recently, and that was this rumor that you're retiring. And it's more than a rumor, of course, because there's actually resignation that's in place. But that's, first off, thank you for your many years of service. And we have it written down that you've 13 years as superintendent and 22 years in the Minot Public School District. What a career.
Yeah. You know, I'm blessed to be a part of a great school district for this long. It's been a great experience, and I wouldn't change a thing.
Absolutely. You started out as a teacher in Willow City?
No, actually, I started my career as a teacher in Yuma, Arizona.
Yuma, Arizona.
Yeah.
Wow.
In those years when I was out of college, teaching jobs in North Dakota were hard to come by. And
okay.
It seems really odd because right now we have such a teacher shortage.
Right.
But yeah, it was hard to get a job, and when you didn't have experience, so I, like many of my peers, we went south. We went to Arizona. I had friends that went to Texas.
Okay.
And yeah, worked down there for a couple of years and came back. Then I spent 6 years in the Turtle Mountain Indian Reservation, where I was the in-school suspension supervisor, and I worked with special needs students, and I also worked in the office handling discipline referrals for a year. Then to my hometown of Willow City, where I was a principal and social studies teacher. That was interesting because a lot of the teachers that were there were my teachers when I was in high school. So when I would be hard on kids, they were real quick to remind me that, I wasn't perfect back in the day. And then started in 2002 in Minot, assistant principal of Magic City for 3, head principal for 6 years, and now, year 13 as superintendent.
Wow. What a career.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. And when we add them all up, I think it's around 34 or 35 years or something like that.
That's incredible.
Never a regret.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of change that's happened in those 34, 35 years. What are a few of the changes that have stood out to you?
Well, I'm a lot older and fatter, certainly. I think some of the changes, one of the biggest things is education is cyclical. Okay. When I began in my career in education, we were really heavily based on teaching reading through phonics and phonemic awareness. Broke away from that, went to a whole language approach, and now we're right back to phonics and phonemic awareness. That's
incredible.
Yeah. So, the one thing that has remained relatively consistent are kids.
Right.
Kids, they maybe dress a little differently, or they might have different hair or different, but kids are kids. And I always said if I could have a career working with kids, I wouldn't go wrong. So
right.
It's pretty great.
What got you into the line of teaching? Obviously, it's something that you pursued even moving out of state to do.
Yeah, I went to UND. I was going to be an international business and finance major because I had a lot of family and friends that say, don't ever be a teacher.
Okay.
You're never going to make any money. You're never going to like it. But I always wanted to be a teacher. I realized after my first semester at UND, I spent my history classes are what I loved, and then I got the degree in history and the teaching certification and as well, and then also driver's ed. So I spent a lot of years teaching driver's ed at different schools around the state in the summer too. So it's been an interesting thing. But what my first love is what I landed back in, and that was education. Education,
very good. So beginning right around 2010 or so, you became superintendent of the Minot Public Schools.
Yeah, July 1st, 2011, right during the flood. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, that big time. There was obviously a lot of intense things going on. Before we talk about the flood, we'll spend some time talking about that because that had to be quite the introduction. What did it actually mean to be superintendent to you personally, but also to the role that you played in the school system in Minot?
Yeah, I had a career in Minot. I loved my time in Magic City, and I loved working with kids. I knew that the superintendency was going to be different because you're no longer working directly with kids, but you try to create the conditions for people to work with kids. So I took a leap of faith and I applied. I was at the state hockey tournament in 2011 when I got the call asking me to take the position.
Wow.
Had lots of dreams and aspirations of what I was going to do in those days. And after I took over, but that was all changed because of the flood.
Because of the flood.
Yeah.
And that had to be a very difficult situation to work through. What's the flood, COVID? I'm sure those are two high or low points. But what were some of the things that proverbially or literally kept you up at night as superintendent when thinking of the school system?
Outside of those two things?
Yes.
I think the things that have probably concerned me the most are finding ways to meet the needs of students, especially struggling students.
Right.
We need our kids to be able to read. We need our kids to be able to do math. And if you're going to be successful in this world, you have to have certain core skills.
Right.
And it's tough because kids come to us with all different levels of understanding and knowledge and ability. Mm-hmm. And it's our job to make them productive members of society with parents to move that through.
Right.
Those are probably the things that worry me the most. How do we meet the needs of kids in an ever-changing world?
Right.
And the needs are great.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of outside factors, we have a lot of concerns with drug use and abuse in our community, like every other community.
Right.
We read about human trafficking. We read about all of these things, and sometimes our world isn't as safe as when I was growing up.
Right.
But how do we support kids? How do we work through that and work with families to make sure that kids have every opportunity possible? So
absolutely.
that's the crux of what I've focused my work on the past years.
I'm sure it's an incredible accomplishment when you're able to see some of those that you had to worry about being assets to the community years later.
We have many of our teachers were former students of mine.
Wow.
That's pretty awesome. Or now I'll see parents and they'll be at their school with their littles and their former students.
Right.
It's a nice thing, and that's a great part about being in a school system as long as I have.
Right.
Many friends and people in the community, and I hope I've left a positive impact on them.
Right.
And that I'll be remembered favorably as the superintendent.
So you started right during the time of the flood, and just what a difficult situation. I believe that Perkett was one of the only schools that was kept mostly safe, that was in the impacted areas. Just what was that? Just complete overwhelm? What was that like to be in that situation right away?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is that we had, my wife and I had a very, very good friends, a couple that lost a daughter during that time, and it put it in perspective. We're going to rebuild this thing, and we're going to be fine. But,
it's true.
Those friends were never going to see their daughter again.
Right.
The other part of it is okay, when you take over a school system and half of it's sitting in water, what else can you screw up, right? So we just worked really well together with the city and the county and FEMA. FEMA was a challenge from time to time, but we were able to get through it and make it work. And I still remember back in those days working with Alan Walter and Kurt Zimbelman and so many other people. Now when I see Deanna Criswell being interviewed on Fox News or wherever, she's down there in Florida, and she's like the national director of FEMA. Deanne was boots on the ground in Minot, and we worked with her regularly during that time. So, at the end of the day, a tragedy, no doubt, but we got through it as a community. Right,
and that's one thing that's very strong, that has been said many times about Minot, is the strength of our community to bind together during those difficult times. Was there much impact on learning? I'm sure there was a lot of adjustments in the classrooms, how the classrooms had to be set up. Did you guys see an overall impact on learning for the kids during that time?
We saw a lot of impact on learning. We saw, especially with the littles, a lot of those kids that normally would be going home, and the parents would read to them, and they'd do a little homework, and they'd get to bed at a normal time. And we had families that were living in a FEMA trailer outside their house, and they were working in their home until they couldn't work in their home anymore, and then they would come in and sleep. So I think some of that was really hard on family and family structures. One of the most heart-wrenching things for me was when we had Lincoln over at Presbyterian Church, and there was a little boy in the hallway crying, and I asked, what's wrong? He said, well, my teacher said I needed to bring my boots today. This is down the start of winter. She says, I don't have any boots. I don't know where my boots are.
Yeah.
So things like that.
Right.
And, people pulled together and helped a lot.
Right.
But I think for kids, especially the smaller kids, understanding the whole makeup of that and what that was, a family losing their home and being uncertain about, how much support would be there from FEMA or whatever. So
absolutely.
Strong communities survive many things.
Yeah. Well said. A second difficult thing that you had to lead through was COVID. And of course, this is one of those things that's even more, almost more so out of your control than the flood, and that there's measures being taken by city, by state, that federal, that all come down on you and the decisions that you're able to make. And then also it puts you into a precarious situation because you had incredible pressure from parents on both sides that were saying this is the way we should do it, and the other side, other people were saying no, this is the way we should do it, and very strong feelings that were held by everybody. And obviously for you, you're just like, we just want what's best for the kids. That's what our decisions hinge on. And then you also had the activists that were getting involved in this from trying to politicize the whole thing as well. How do you feel like that situation went? Do you feel like it was handled, to use the word best would be probably an overreach because we can all look 2020 and say we could do this better. But overall, what's your general feel of how that situation was handled?
Well, I think it's real easy to look back in retrospect and say, gosh, we overreacted, we didn't, whatever.
Yep.
The governor called me down to Bismarck to do a press conference with him back in March of 20, and we went down, we talked about it. We went from no case in the state of North Dakota to one case in Ward County, and we even shut down the state Class A basketball tournament that week. So it was just pandemonium. Yep. We got down there. Nobody knew what to expect. We were hearing these horror stories from all around the United States of people dying, and we were relatively free of it here. Mm-hmm. Now, my youngest son and his bride were married in July of 2020.
Okay.
And there was a lot of tears and a lot of decision making in regard to should they have the wedding or not. We don't know. Had the wedding here in Minot at the Sleep Inn, probably 500 people there. Nobody got COVID. We were okay. But in September of that year, it was like we had released the hounds of hell.
Right.
And we had so many COVID cases and people getting really, really sick. So we were the only Class A school in the state of North Dakota that stayed open that 2021 school year. We came back in the fall. We were open every day. We had a very robust team of educators, teachers, principals, community members that helped guide us through. We had structures in place to do what we could do. But those were tough years. I mean, we ended up, had a lot of people out on quarantines or isolation, a lot of kids out. Like all of us, I think we knew people that we lost in COVID.
Absolutely.
We lost some staff members due to COVID. Not easy stuff. So in retrospect, looking back, did we overreact or not? I'm not entirely sure.
Right.
I do know, and I do think that I'm grateful for all the people that were willing to come to the table and talk about it.
Right. Because
we had a lot of stuff going on and a lot of people that, just rolled up their sleeves and went to work. So,
right. That's important.
Yeah. We got through it. Tough years. A lot of every quarantine letter, every isolation letter was developed by me for the entire district. My take was, even though I was at district office, I was going to do everything I could to support principals and teachers in this. And
it's huge.
Real busy years.
Have you seen any lasting impacts from it?
Definitely, I think, in regard to learning loss. A lot of those kids, when we were in that heavy bout of COVID in the fall of 20 and spring of 21, we had a lot of people that were, first of all, they missed 3 months of school or 2.5 months of school in the spring of 20. And then that next year, we had a lot of people that were out because, teachers weren't teaching or teaching from home or kids were isolated. So we missed a lot of instruction time. We're really trying not to focus on like COVID learning loss, but just to say, here's where kids are at right now, and let's work on making progress moving forward. But yeah, definite impacts. I think one of the biggest impacts I've noticed is that kids, that social component was really kind of gone for them during that time, and for adults too.
Right.
I have an aunt that died during the COVID year there in 21. She didn't die of COVID, but she was in a nursing home, and we didn't have access to her for months and months.
It's difficult.
You know, there's a lot of things that, you know, those are the long-lasting effects that I think that we don't necessarily understand. And somebody will have a great dissertation topic in the future, and we'll look back in 20 years and know a lot more about it than we do now.
Right, absolutely. Did you see any potentially positive impacts from remote learning as well, from there being sometimes, so an example would be Zoom. That was something that was just there, and then now people are always using Zoom for meetings rather than all getting together. Was there any positives like that were able to be found either on the learning side or from the working together on the teacher side?
Absolutely. You know, we had a lot of technology available for our kids. I don't think we really were forced to use it until everybody went home, and then you had to use it. Now, I mean, there's a lot of meetings that I attend on a regular basis, or used to drive to and attend, and now we're virtual. Even the legislative session, I spend a lot of time down at the legislature. I prefer to be down there physically at the legislature, but now, you know, our patrons throughout the state of North Dakota can watch every legislative session. They can watch every committee hearing. They can be an active part of that, where you never could have done that before. So, we learned a lot. And you're getting to be better at technology and using technology as a tool, not the thing.
No.
But still, we still need an opportunity from time to time where we are looking each other in the face, eye to eye, like we are now. Not everything can be done on a computer screen.
Yeah, somebody told me some people are powered by what technology can do, so they're like enamored by it, and others are using it as a tool so that way they can actually broaden things, and that's the key right there. Use it as a tool.
Absolutely. And I remember we had that discussion years and years ago, probably before you were born, when the internet first came out, and like I said, well, this is so cool. You can have a computer and you can pull up the encyclopedia and you can look at it online. And I said, or I can walk over and I can grab an encyclopedia and have the same impact.
Absolutely.
But we've just got to be better at using technology. And our teachers are good at that. And our kids are good at it. And we tell the teachers all the time, if you can't figure out how to do something, ask a kid. They're going to be able to do it for you.
It's incredible. I have a 2-year-old, and it's sad. We try to keep technology away from him, but somehow he still gets his hand on that technology, and he knows his way around the phone and stuff way too well. It's incredible how easily it comes to them.
It's a lot of research about that right now that's a bit of a concern because, you know, like kids don't understand that process necessarily of turning a page, but they recognize how to swipe.
Okay. Yeah, so, that is interesting. Yeah. That is concerning. Those are some of the difficult times that you had to lead through, but there have also been some incredible times of success for the Minot Public Schools as well over the last few years. One of those areas is sports. Minot has become very competitive on the state level in a lot of sports. There's the new high school that's coming in. What are some of the areas of success that stand out to you?
Oh, boy. 22 years. Of course, the sports teams, you know, just three back-to-back state Class A boys championships in basketball, 3 back-to-back girls soccer championships. We've had success of our students on the stage, on the field, in music competitions. Many, many good things. The new high school, wow.
Right.
You know, we went from 1969 to 2014, 45 years with no pass bond issue, passed the Hoven bond issue in 14, passed the big one in 21 to build the new high school and the changes to Magic City and Central. Those are all big. I think the biggest thing is the fact that we are doing so much for kids, and we have so many opportunities for them to be successful in this crazy, crazy world.
Right.
That includes work experiences. It includes CTE opportunities. I mean, we've just put in a CDL simulator, and we're teaching kids that might want to be a CDL driver, over-the-road driver. They're going to have that opportunity to get that training.
In high school.
In high school. This isn't your father's Oldsmobile anymore, right? I mean, we have classes, auto repair, auto collision, welding, and we're turning out great welders. we have food nutrition careers classes, medical careers. So kids have just this incredible option, right?
Right.
To be out there to learn a little bit and experience some things in high school before they go and invest a bunch into a college,
right?
And then decide, wow, that's not something that I really want to do or like. So if there's anything that to me has been the most incredible thing is that we've, number one, seen a pretty nice increase in our graduation rate. We're graduating about 90% of our kids in 4 years. Many of them are coming back as a super senior, we like to say, and finish up that next year. But our kids are leaving with an incredible amount of skill and opportunity. And I always said, firm believer, grow where you're planted. I was raised in Willow City, graduated from Willow City in a class of 22, and that was a big class for Willow City.
Wow.
But wherever you grow, wherever you're planted, grow.
Right.
Do the best you can. And but I think we've provided some pretty wonderful opportunities for kids.
Kim has been up to the new high school a couple times, and he has gushed about the hands-on experience that is going to be provided through the things that are going on. From my understanding, a daycare area, the CDL you mentioned. Where did some of these ideas come from? Where actually developing specifically for this stuff?
I have worked with great people, great school boards, great community leaders. Pam Strokeland is our CTE director. You know, she's boots on the ground. She's working with other folks. That whole idea about these CTE centers kind of actually came from Pam and I going down and stopping in the legislature a couple of years ago, pitching an idea. You know, can we support this work? Can we make this happen? And, you know, lo and behold, it happened. Yeah. We sat at those legislative sessions, and I heard from a lot of legislators saying, yeah, it would be nice, but I don't know. I don't know. But what the key turning point on this was COVID money that came from the federal government that was funneled through the state into those CTE grants. So that Minded Area Workforce Academy is a direct result of that. It's a dream that's been a long time coming, but you know what we want to do is to create productive members of society, and when you provide those opportunities, that's where it begins. So we're pretty proud of that.
When you drive by where the new high school's going to be, the walls look enormous, the structures look huge, and then you go and you drive north on the bypass and you look back and you're like, oh, there's even a football field in the back. It's a huge sprawling campus.
It's on about 60 acres.
60 acres, wow. How does that compare to other high schools in the state?
Pretty close, I would say. I think we probably have more physical space. As far as the size, I think pretty similar to Grand Forks, Bismarck schools. Yeah, it's nice. You know, have that football stadium up there, to have that 50-meter pool on site is going to be phenomenal. Beautiful theater in there. I'm just, you know, I never was that much of an athlete, but I was more in the music end of things. It's going to be a beautiful facility to have and to support our kids. So, again, it's all because of the generosity of the voters, and they came forward with this, and we listened to a lot of parents who said it's time to make a transition to a two comprehensive 9-12 high school system, and a lot of people worked real hard on that. I was happy to be a part of it. So
there's already been, from my understanding, a little bit of a transition, that there's some sports activities that's taking place for the North Hill High School. Is that open enrollment where you can choose which high school? Is it based off where you live in town? How does that work?
We use a feeder system. Middle schools, or elementaries feed into middle schools feed into high school.
Gotcha.
So the North Campus is going to have Ramstead students, Memorial Air Force Base Middle School students, and then some of the students from Central Campus Middle School. Okay. Everyone on the south side of town, Jim Hill, will go to Magic City, and then the majority of the kids who are at Central Middle School will also go to Magic City.
So we're going to get some good in-town rivalry.
You bet.
That'll be good.
Yeah, that'll be a very exciting night.
It will be.
The first time those two football teams play, or the two basketball teams. It's going to be phenomenal.
And continuing on the open enrollment, something that somebody actually submitted to ask was, how does the open enrollment work with surrounding schools? If you live 5 miles out of town, are you able to go to Minot High? And would you be able to choose at that point?
Yes, no, maybe so.
Okay,
we don't accept open enrollment. Open enrollment is a long-term agreement that would allow a child to come into our district. we do tuition waivers, which is
Okay.
an agreement between us and a neighboring school district. They have to be done annually.
Okay.
So if there's room, we can allow a student to come in from the outside, as long as both schools have to sign off on that.
Okay.
We've taken that route because, if you bring in too many kids from the outside and you need to build more space, then pretty soon it's the Minot patrons that are supporting and paying for that.
Right.
So kids from other school districts can be educated.
Right.
So we have a pretty good working relationship with Nedrow, South Prairie, Surrey, and we work that out on a regular basis. But there are guidelines and boundaries that are set by law, and we follow that pretty closely unless we follow the provision of the waiver. Right.
Very good. Very good. We're coming to a close in this interview, but I want to focus a little bit on how the environment in schools have changed. You've seen a lot in your time. You've even pointed out that it's a little bit cyclical, where things that used to be are coming back in, kind of like style and suits and everything else, I guess. But something that probably can't go unnoticed is how kids have changed. At the core, they're still kids, and how parents have changed in the last 30 years. What kind of effects have you seen in school when you're working with parents in the parent-teacher conferences, the feedback you're getting from parents, and even with the impact of technology that has entered the school? What have you seen?
Well, number one, technology has created an environment where people want to answer and they want it now.
Right.
And I keep thinking back in my years at Magic City campus where, you have a kid that's on the line, they might not graduate, they need to pass government, or if they don't pass government, they're not going to graduate. And so they know the kid has a test on Friday at 10 o'clock, and they're online checking at 10:20 to see why isn't that score in there yet.
Right.
So there's more immediacy with that. With that, I think there's more need and desire for parents for us to be in constant communication. And we have some communication platforms that allow us to text parents and notify parents. So the communication piece is big. I think parents in general, more involved in the elementary, less involved in middle school, disengaged somewhat maybe in the secondary ranks unless they need to be. And that's all part of, kids are built to fly.
Right.
So we raise them, want them to take and deal with their own issues. But parents are parents, and kids are kids, and we're school people. So I said the bottom line is you treat everybody with respect, you treat them with kindness, and you work through situations, because we don't have crises nearly as much as we have opportunities to work together.
Right.
So parent comes in, they want to meet with me. Have they met with their child's teacher, the principal, and then the assistant superintendent for elementary or secondary before they get to me?
Yeah, follow the process.
That's the way we want it to be, right?
Right.
We want to take care of those problems at the very basic point. And when that doesn't happen, then our doors are open to try to work through things. But, we have an issue in this world right now, I think, with just kindness.
Right.
And treating people with respect. So my take on it is treat people the way you want to be treated, right? And work that through. And when we do that, we can usually find resolve on issues.
Absolutely. Mentioned a little bit of technology and how that's affecting communication, stuff like that. How does that also affect the kids? We're seeing a rise in ChatGPT. That's a buzzword, AI, another buzzword. How is that starting to affect education? Have you seen that effect yet?
I'm hearing more from my friends at the collegiate level about concerns with that. We've not had a lot of concern brought forward yet at the secondary level, and of course at elementary, not as much. One of the biggest concerns we do face in regard to that is this whole thing about social media and how we communicate and how we, whether it's a Snapchat or whatever. Despite all we know about technology, we still have kids that think, well, if I send it in Snapchat, it disappears in 30 seconds. Or once it's opened, it's gone. Well, anybody that screenshots that, now there's a permanent record there.
Right.
So I think a lot of that, what we have to work on is more of an emphasis on whether it's ChatGPT or the artificial intelligence piece. We've got to educate people on the realities of all of that. So
awareness.
Whether it's pictures taken of yourself and sent or whatever, that we need people to understand that not everything just goes away.
Right.
And there's no way that you could stop something that's floating out there.
Right. Yeah. Once it's online,
it's online.
It's there to stay.
That's right.
So what does retirement actually mean to you?
Boy, I'm a little scared to think about it. I've been working like all my life. I ranch with my sons up in Bottineau County by Omimi, Willow City area. I know they certainly think I need to be up there to do some more chores than I've been doing the last few years. They also farm. I can help out with that a little bit. I'm looking at some things. I'm not done working yet. But, a wise friend of mine said many years ago, you're going to know when it's time.
Right.
And it's time.
It's time.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, and it's time for somebody else to come in with a new perspective and a new look, and we'll see where that goes. But I'll be doing something. You'll see me around.
We'll find you. Well, do appreciate you coming on this episode today. Any parting words of wisdom or knowledge that you need to leave with us?
Yeah, I just want to say to John Sandine, who was the principal at Magic City Campus, and Dick Larson, who was superintendent in 2002. Arlen Marquardt was assistant sup back in those years. And thanks for taking a chance on me back in 2002. Right. A young guy from Willow City that came in and was applying for a job in a pretty big high school. And, we've had our ups and our downs. We've had a lot of great things happen. But all in all, I feel pretty blessed to be here for 22 years. And thanks to the community of Minot, it's been quite a ride, but it's been great.
Well, that's fantastic. Again, thank you for all the work that you've done in the community and for the sacrifice. It's not seen sometimes as that, but really there's a great measure of sacrifice of all the hours, time that you can spend with your family. So very appreciative to that, and thank you for coming on this podcast today. This has been another episode of Minot Matters here on the Dakotan, brought to you by Shock Safe and Lock. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at My Dakotan, or follow us on Facebook at My Dakotan. Also, this podcast is on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever you listen to, so you can listen to it there. Thank you, and have a great day.